And we are live on YouTube. We are live for this week's Flippinar. This is Ty, aka the Flip Man. Welcome to this week's Flippinar. If you've already made it or you're about to make it, be a second before we let the chat room load and start answering your questions with hopefully answers that make sense from me. So again, we'll wait a few minutes here. So while we're doing that, do a little house cleaning and make sure that people can access through Flippinar.com. So again, welcome to those that have already made it to this week's Flippinar. You could have been doing a lot of other things, but you're here. So again, welcome, welcome, welcome to those that have made it, or those that are trying to get here to this week's Flippinar. I'm going to answer your questions about wholesaling houses. You all are just joining. Justin from San Antonio, welcome aboard. Somebody said they finally made it. I'm not sure how to pronounce their name. Kay Davis, what's going on? McKnight Property Investments LLC, what's going on? So again, I appreciate everyone that's already showed up to this week's Flippinar. Going to wait a couple of minutes to allow others to get going. But for you all that, I guess you're not new to me if you're coming on this Flippinar right now, there will be obviously a replay that'll be still here on YouTube. But for those of you all that are with me right now, again, welcome aboard. And so we're going to get the rocket and rolling here. And I'll answer your questions as I can do my best, as far as Gump would say. I don't think my Forrest mine didn't say that. Somebody did. But anyway, so again, Raleigh, North Carolina, Albert, Eclipse Lawn Care, what's up? Solomon Green. It starts 7 Eastern, 4 p.m. West Coast time, Pacific. So Solomon Green, I'm sorry. So that would be a little too late. I know it may be a little too early on the West Coast, but it is still daylight there. So it should be daylight pretty much everywhere. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm ready for you all's questions. Well, welcome everyone that's watching right now. We'll knock this out. We went to a new format, just questioning and answering period. So I think that's going better. I can get more information and get more questions answered by for you all, and people can watch this later. So again, welcome to this week's live Flippinar. We are live right now. If you're on here, you see this later, obviously won't be live, but this is live. So right off the top of my dome, I'm going to answer your questions and hopefully you can learn from them and get you going in the right direction. Guys, please, 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 and don't think if you text me or call me or whatever that I'm being rude, but if you ask a question that my video will answer, I'm going to normally refer you to the video. So sometimes people say, hey, can you answer one question for me? One turns into 5. So depending on how my day is going, I may do it or whatever, and I'm not rejecting anyone from contacting me because I wouldn't put my phone number out there. But especially people that just first discover me, they may watch one video and bam, they're contacting me. How do you put a house on the contract? You know, bam, how many videos have you watched? That's going to be my first question. And so take advantage of the free information. No, they're not in any order. But as I had to tell a guy today, they're free. So you should take advantage of that information. You don't have the money to pay me or someone like me. If you can find a better source than what I offer here on YouTube, not to toot my own horn, then roll with it or use this source and another one, to get what you want, which is to do deals and make money or whatever. I can understand you just don't have the money, you just don't have it. Me personally, when I started this, I would have done what it take. I was just fortunate enough. I stumbled into a bootleg copy for, I still had to spend money that I didn't have. Somebody didn't get paid, but best $400 investment I've ever made in myself financially. So, so boom. So let's go ahead and get with some questions, man. Let's get it. Michael Marchand, what's going on? Desiree in Maryland. Latasha, what's happening? Cameron. So let's get some questions going, guys, and we'll get this Flippinar here kicked off. So again, welcome to those that have already made it. We are live on YouTube with this week's Flippinar. I'm calling it show number 3 because even though I've done a lot more Flippinars over the last 3 weeks, this is the 3rd question and answer show. So, or Flippinar. So we'll roll with it. We'll just call it show number 3. So, all right. So we got our first question here. So Albert Diaz says, can you elaborate about notes? Well, notes, real estate is vast. Notes are not my thing. So I'm not even going to try to go into detail about that because that's something I've never done. I looked into it, but it's just not my thing. So Albert, I'm sorry, I can't answer your question on that. What's going on, Cindy? I love you too. All right, how does the seller, Sedisha, I guess that's the way that's pronounced. How does the seller get paid by the title company? My disconnect is in the details of the closing details you send to the title company. The seller will get paid because your cash buyer is funding the deal. That's the purpose of your cash buyer. You've located a very attractive deal that cash buyers are willing to pay you a fee to take your position. So they are the ones that are going to fund the deal. So when everyone sits down to close a deal, the cash buyer will either bring a cashier's check to closing or wire the funds to the title company or closing attorney's account or bring a check to the closing. And so that's how the deal is funded. So whenever its checks are dispersed, the seller will get their agreed upon amount and you will get your agreed upon amount and the buyer gets the house. All right. Thanks, Solomon, for watching my videos over and over again, man. Just take advantage of it, man. See, the thing is, people look for titles, and you should, but even though a title may say one thing, I may have to go into something else that may answer a question that you have because I'm explaining the totality of whatever the title is. And so it may include something else that you need answered. So that's why I encourage people, if you don't know, again, if you don't have the money to pay me for the step-by-step course, take advantage of this puzzle. It's a puzzle. I can go along with that. It's a lot of information, but I heard a guy say, if you don't have money, more than likely you have time. So take advantage of it and boom. And the great thing about now with smartphones and everything, even if you're traveling to work or whatever you're doing, you'll have time to listen because you can access on YouTube pretty much anywhere. You know, that's where we are technology-wise. So you can knock me out as far as the number of videos I have, probably realistically, probably within a month. But again, it's free. It's free content. So, all right, so let's go to another question here. Marcus 3C says, other than banner signs, what would you say is the most effective marketing for motivated seller leads? Direct mail, which you have to be a lot more patient with direct mail versus banner signs. With either one, you got to do it right. But to answer your question, direct mail takes a little bit more patience, costs a little more, but you have to be dedicated to it. If you can only afford to send out $20 worth a week or a month, then be consistent with it. It may take you a year to do a deal, but be consistent. But the great thing about it, just one deal will springboard your marketing into orbit because of what you could spend off of that one deal in most cases. So let me see here. Angelo says, Okay, Angelo says, do you have to always have a POF letter to get a deal done? Proof of funds, as a matter of fact, a guy just texted me a moment ago, said he was interested in my course and coaching, asked a question. He had a seller that wanted proof of funds and a binding letter of intent. And if a seller is a private seller, no a realtor is involved, if they're asking for that, in most cases, you don't have a deal. Motivated sellers just don't talk or negotiate it or have those expectations. It's going to be very rare. Only time POF, proof of funds, is when you're dealing with realtors. That's the only way they're going to take you serious, is that you have to have proof of funds and, obviously earning some money. But, that could be finagled or whatever, or negotiated in your favor. But yeah, if they're asking for proof of funds, a private seller, you're dealing directly with the owner. In most cases, you probably don't have a deal. And if they are asking for that, let me just say, assuming that they are and the numbers work or whatever, you think you have a smoking deal, then that's going to be a judgment call on you. And there are services out there that offer it. But normally, if they're going to want a POF like that, they're going to want a large earnest money deposit also. They just normally go hand in hand. They're not going to accept $10. So Darius Knox says, hard money lender. Hard money is really only needed if you're trying to rehab and flip properties. For wholesaling, there's no need for it. Zenfina Johnson, I think I'm saying that correctly. How to get started in this business. The best way is, number one, to educate yourself and take action from there. That's the best way to get started in this business. Educate yourself, whether it's through these 200 plus videos that I have, or if you want to sign up for the coaching that I have, or whoever. You got to know what you're doing, know what you're talking about, know how to analyze a deal, how to find a deal, number one, knowing what is a great deal, how to negotiate it, how to place it on the contract. Once you place it on the contract, how to place a cash buyer with it, building a cash buyers list off of your deals that you're marketing, and then the closing. So you go through the phases of putting a deal together, but obviously you have to know what you're doing. So the main thing is to simplify the business. You can always look for deals, but I prefer the deals to find me through my marketing efforts, banner signs, direct mail, internet, whatever. So boom, hopefully I answered your question. Tyler Stewart, have you ever wholesale vacant land? I think only once over the 14 years. It's all about, any real estate can be wholesale. One of the Trump towers can be wholesale. And you're talking about properties that are in the maybe in hundreds of millions of dollars. But if you can get a deal on it, you can find a buyer for it. So same thing with land. The only thing with land is it's so there's so much speculation that the types of buyers that you're going to need, it's just going to be different. If you're just talking about residential lots, unless they're developing in that neighborhood, it's going to be difficult. But I say that depends on what type of deal you get. You may get a vacant lot on the contract for $500 and wholesale it for $1,500. Who knows? So anything can be wholesale. That just never been my thing, because I know with land is a lot of speculation going in there. So that's going to decrease the number of buyers that you can attract, especially cash buyers, because most buyers want immediate returns instead of just sitting on something. All right, Rhonda. What do you say to the seller so they won't ask the buyer any questions? I guess, what do you mean, Ron? You may have to be a little bit more clear on that. I assume you mean if you're showing the house and the buyer and the seller are there. If that's the case, then you just need to let the buyer know what your position is. Hey, you can ask the buyer, the seller, the property owner, any questions, but all pricing questions go through me because I have it on the contract. Just be straight up. That needs to be made very clear, and you need to be comfortable that the buyer understands that. If it's a situation where the seller want to give you access to the property without them being there, or if it now is at closing, you just walk into the closing and say, hey, Mr. Seller, this is Mr. Buyer, this is my partner on this deal. Boom, they don't care. It's happy time. It's Christmas on closing day. Everybody's happy because they're getting what they wanted out of the deal. All right. Properties on HOAs, I guess you mean homeowners association, go after them or not? If it's a deal on, if I'm following you correctly, Kay Davis, it doesn't matter. If it's a deal, you know, obviously the numbers still have to work depending on what's paid quarterly or monthly on the HOA or yearly or annually. So, you know, as long as the numbers work, taking that into consideration, no, it won't, it shouldn't matter if I'm understanding your question correctly. Cindy says, what do you use to keep track of buyer and seller leads? I have an iPhone, so I just basically put it in my notes section of my phone, and it has a search feature there, so I can always go back to it. Now here lately, what I've been using also is I've just been recording the conversations. I started doing that because you guys wanted me to record a couple of conversations of sellers. So I said, I can use that just to actually revert back to the actual conversation. It can remind me of the tone and why they're selling and all that, even though I sort of put that in my notes, but the tone you can't put in your notes or whatever. So I can go back and listen to the call if need be. So I'm not really sure how many leads my audio service or app on my phone will, how much memory that'll take up, but that's what I've been doing lately. So, and then I'll just note it, because you can actually, I know on the iPhone, you can title the note. So I'll put there seller one, May 11th. I'll put their sign to tell me how I got the lead, and then maybe put just the neighborhood or the street there. So boom, so that's what I do. Some people are a lot more organized than I am, but I'm probably the wrong person to ask on that. T-Hope says, ready to learn. I'm ready to teach, T-Hope. Dive into these free videos, man. Excuse me here, guys. I'm just looking at a text from the seller. Okay, so the next question here. Ken Davis says, what's more beneficial to your training first, or order bandit signs first if you can't afford both? Well, the way I did it, you don't have to do it this way, obviously, is that I educated myself first. So I bought, the course that I bought, and then I used bandit signs. That's where I did it. So it's going to be up to you, because I couldn't afford both. I had to wait and basically a month later almost before I could, pay for bandit signs. Because I was working a full-time job at that point, and my money wasn't like that where I could do both. So hopefully that answers your question, Ken. Maria, I'm not just a added question. It says, Maria, plus with your videos, I can fast forward. Okay, you're just making a statement. Yes, you can, Maria. So T-Hope says, okay, just talking about daylight savings. Okay, let me see here. Got lost. Well, you got a lot of questions here. Hold on, let me find my place. Okay, boom. Kingdom Realtor says, what's the best way to set up your mail marketing campaign? Man, there's a lot of ways to go about it. Depends on if you're going to do postcards or yellow letters, or the way my students do it, or I train them to do it in the way I do it. So I'm just going to go by what most people know about, either postcard or yellow letter. So first you got to buy a list. It's going to start with either listsource.com or melissadata.com. You buy an absentee list. You don't know what absentee means. as a real estate owner, you can only have one homestead. That's the house that you live in. Everything else is considered absentee. So that's why, and the reason you target absentee is that more you're playing the numbers that there may be a level of motivation for an absentee owner because it's not their main residence. So it may be a landlord, which that'll be a huge number of the people, a huge segment of the number of absentee owners, maybe a probate situation, maybe divorce. It goes into all of it. So anyway, so that's the first thing, buy your list. And then from there, you got to choose whether you're going to do postcards or direct mail. I mean, postcards or yellow letters. And then you can do it yourself, but there are some services that are out there that offer it. So, but I have videos on that to go into detail on that. I have quite a few, I think. So just dive into the channel. All right. Albert Diaz says, what are the steps to dealing with the HUD homes? HUD homes, I've never tackled that animal. I don't have the patience for it. You need the right buyer. You're talking about wholesaling now, and that's what this Flippinar is about. That's what my channel is about. You need a buyer that's basically saying, hey, go out there and find me deals. I'm going to provide the resources for you to do HUD, or unless you already have the resources, because they're going to want earnest money. They're going to want proof of funds. You're going to have the patience on the bids. Once you get it on the contract, you're going to probably have to have some form of transaction funding, because they're not going to let you just assign it over to someone. So it's different. It's more difficult. But if you got the patience for it and the resources, then also dive in. Julian says, what areas are the best to buy cities or suburb? A deal is a deal. It doesn't matter if it's in the suburbs or the inner city. You know, if people are living there, that means money. Somebody there either renting or they're buying. All right. So a lot of people say, well, don't go in the war zone, quote unquote. But again, the checks still spend the same. Now, each market is different. Here, over the years, I've done more deals in quote unquote the war zones than I have in the suburban areas, you know, but I'm a huge bandit sign user. So I can only normally get away with bandit signs in those areas that you see on the news every night. So, but money can be made money in both. So your marketing can be catered to both. You may have to do direct mail targeting the suburban areas, but understand that you're going to have more houses that are probably paid off in the that need to be paid off. I'm sorry, I got lost my train of thought. I read a text. In the suburban areas, you're going to have more houses that are leveraged with mortgages versus in the inner city areas. Not all cities now. Not all cities. I'm just hypothetical here, or just generalizing, that are paid off, meaning they all have low mortgage balances. Now, a property can have a mortgage. It's just the mortgage needs to be less. The mortgage balance, the payoff needs to be less than the amount that you need to make the deal work. All right. So Super Eyes, let me see what they have here. So Super Eyes, on your example of filling out the contract, I didn't see where it shows you getting the difference in the contract. I'm not sure which video you watch, Super Eyes. I have a couple of videos out there, and I think I did a recent Flippinar where I broke down the seller's contract and the buyer's contract at the same time, and I showed where you do actually make the difference of the two contracts. If you have contract A with the seller for, we'll say, $50,000, and contract B with the buyer for $62,000. So you have one contract, the difference is $12,000. So you get the difference of those two. But I break that down in a few videos. Jazzy Enterprises says, what is my first step to get it into real estate? Well, I sort of answered that question a little earlier, but I'll just give a shorter version of it. Depending on what you're trying to do now, this Flippinar, my channel focuses on wholesaling. And if you don't know what that means, that's basically understanding how to do real estate deals without using your cash or credit. You know, you're understanding the power of a contract and how to basically flip that contract to a cash buyer in most cases when you're talking about residential, where you make several $1,000s just from understanding how to, number one, find a great deal, negotiate it, place it on the contract, and then, you know, hey, here you are, cash buyers, fight over it. So, but to get into real estate, it depends on what you're trying to do and what your resources are. Now, I always highly recommend getting into wholesaling, whether you have $1 in the bank or $1 million or 450 credit score and 850 credit score, because what it'll do, it'll teach you how to find great deals, how to negotiate them, and how to leverage your knowledge and techniques instead of your actual cash and credit. Now, if you want to dive into other things after that, then so be it. So, but how to get into real estate, again, the question is, what are you trying to do, and what are your current resources? If you're just being exposed to me and my channel, over 200 videos here. Again, this is live here now for those that are just coming on or whatever, but this is the actual live show. But you can dive into my YouTube channel, over 200 plus videos, almost 9 years of content of me spilling my guts about wholesaling houses mainly, but real estate in general, even commercial or multifamily. So boom. So next question here. All right, I live in California, and you know we got these tax laws out here. How do I go about doing the tax on the yearly income? Do I do it regularly? What with a W-10? I'm not a CPA, but in the famous words, as I said last week or the week before, in the famous words of Marlo Stansfield off The Wire, any of you all familiar with that HBO, probably the greatest show ever. That's one of those good problems. Seek out a CPA, make some money. If you need to pay, if you got to pay, you're going to need to pay taxes on it. That's a good problem. I'd rather pay taxes on 100K, 200, 300K than zero. So that's one of those good problems. But yeah, you're going to have to pay taxes. So your state and whatever your state requires, obviously the Fed goes along with that also. So seek out a CPA is the answer to that question, Solomon. All right, Super Eyes says, on direct mail, which one do you do? Yellow letters, etc. Well, I teach my students, all right, you buy a list, and the list is, most people just mail out to the whole list, and that works. Teach my students to buy a smaller list so they spend less money there and actually do due diligence on each property to see if there's equity. All right. From there, once you mail out, how you mail it, you're gonna send a simple letter, let them know you want to buy the house, but the envelope that you send it in, you're gonna be a 9.5, 12.5 size, the same size if you received a letter through UPS or FedEx. It's gonna be that same thick cardboard. It's called a paperboard mailer, I think is the term that's used for it. And so boom, so it's just going to get noticed. The most difficult thing with any direct mail is getting your message read. Most people sort their mail over the trash can. So if they see this big, wide, thick cardboard mailer, then the probability of your message being read goes up tremendously. And that's the only thing you can do as a direct mail mailer or direct mail marketer, is to increase your chances of your message getting read and just let the numbers take over from there. All right. Can't pronounce the name, but I'll just read the question. Something life. Hey, Flip man. So I just started wholesaling. I have 3 cash buyers, but no motivated sellers at the moment. Is that something to be concerned about? Well, I don't know if you should be concerned about it, but your focus is in the wrong place, in my opinion. The harder part is sellers. So buyers are easy. It's not difficult to give away money, as I've said 1,000 times on other videos, and I'll continue to say it. Focus on the harder part, finding great deals. When you find a briefcase full of cash, 50 grand, and say, hey, it's for sale. Can I take 5 of it? Yeah, they'd be like, yeah, give me that 45. I'll let you have 5,000 of it. So is that hard to do? No, those are cash buyers. Sellers, it's hard to get someone to give you that $50,000. So that's where you need to focus. 80% of your time, it should be focused on cash buys, 15 on, on sellers, probably higher than 80%, but I'm gonna use that number, 15% on buyers, and the other 5% on actually closing your deal and figuring out that part of it. But buyers is what you need to be focusing on, in my opinion. When you separate your buyer and seller at closing, do you show up to each closing? I have done that. A lot of times the buyer, they're cool with doing that. I don't have to show up for them. They just let me know that the title company or the buyer themselves or both will let me know they've shown up. But if need be, I'll show up for both if need be. Whatever it takes to pick up that check, man. Let me see, Kevin Jeter. In New York, if you don't have money, you'll need a hard money lender to supply you with transactional funding for a double close. Again, what are you trying to do? If you're just doing a straight wholesale deal, you don't need that. If you have a property on the actual contract, if dealing with just a regular private seller, you won't need that, Kevin. I'm not sure. You need to maybe explain that in a little bit more detail. Ty Stewart says, how many calls you get before you get a deal? Well, the numbers generally break down like this. Now, this is just generalization, just from my experience and so on. If you're getting 3 calls a day over a 30-day period, average, so that's about 90 to 100 calls over that 30-day period, which is a month. That means you're going to probably do 3 or so deals that month. So you're only operating on a very small percentage of success as far as the number of people that are calling you and they're going to turn into deals. So that's why it's so important that your phone or however you're prospecting for deals, you need to be talking to a lot of sellers. I don't care how it's done. You need to be talking to a lot of people that are interested in selling. The majority of people that you're going to talk to, they're going to be in la la land about their properties as far as price. So you expect it. Even to this day, 14 plus years in the game, at the date of this video, I'm still surprised when I hear a number that I know works. Now, I know I'm going to drop what I'm doing and try to go see the property as soon as they can allow me to see it. And sometimes I'll just go ahead and just drive by it anyway before they may have the time to show it to me. So, but boom. So I hope that answers your question. All right, Billy says, what questions do you ask sellers in order to decide whether you can help them or not? Well, you have to collect just general information about the property: address, beds and bath, condition, why are they selling, does it have a mortgage, age of the roof. A lot of those questions, I don't even ask, but just for the sake of teaching you all how to do it right. Does it have a mortgage? If so, what's the balance? Obviously their contact information, and then you ask them as a question: paying all cash and closing quickly, what's the least amount you'll accept? And you wait on a response. Regardless of what they say, you always ask, is that the best you can do? I learned that from training. I still use that same method of negotiating. I'm not a hard negotiator because it's just not my personality. So hopefully that answers the question. So depending on what they say will determine if I should proceed or not. Obviously, you have to take in consideration the condition and repair cost, estimated repair cost, but those are the basic steps of when you're talking to a seller. All right. All right, Justin says, can you share any tips on finding national tenant info for vacant commercial properties? But there are lists out there that you can buy. They're somewhat a little pricey. So that's where you can start. But other than that, if you don't have the money, just create you a chart, you know, and just diagram. Say obviously fast food would be the first category, and go through, and you can do a search on Google. Remember, Google is your friend. It'll provide a lot of information of you. It'll give you like you just put in there the top 100 fast food chains, you know, based on number of locations. That'll give you a list. So from there, once you get the list, because you'll forget about or may not be aware of some, because they may be nationwide, but they may not be in your state of what you're familiar with, you can just roll with that. And then from there, you get a contact number for them. But Google, again, you reach out to them. So you go with auto parts stores or just retail in general, just a list of retail outlets or triple net retail list, you know, just Google and just do as much research as you can for free. And you'll probably come up with, you know, several hundred. You know, again, there's some lists out there that'll make it a lot easier for you, but they're normally not free. Now, in my course that I offer, Flipping Bacon Commercial Buildings, that list is included with the course. But boom, but again, I've given you a way that you can come up with a good list on your own without paying anything. So, which the list I have on the course, you know, has several. I think it's maybe over 1,000, maybe a little more on that list. So, all right. Have I ever used, Kim Harris says, have I ever used transactional funds for double closings? No, I haven't. Because I don't ever do double closings. So, but I've had a student or two that have done it before, and people I've talked to or whatever, but I don't do double closings. I don't see a need for it. So to answer your question, no. The assignments work great. If you're on this live Flippinar right now, send someone a text and say, hey, join, go to flippinar.com and join us to get a question answered. So boom, so the next question, as I said, we are live right now. So do you like, so Narsha Life, I guess that's how that's pronounced. Do you like short sales? And what advice do you give to people that might be approached with short sales for selling it? I personally don't like short sales. I don't have the patience for them. I'm not saying don't do them by no means. If you're going to listen to me, I'm not saying that. It's just I don't have the patience for them, because what you have to understand with a short sale, you're dealing with a lender, and you're obviously dealing with a homeowner that are behind in payments, and that's one of their options is for the resolution. So the problem is that you submit an offer, you know, you go through the process, create the short sales package based on whatever lender's criteria, and 60 days have passed, and the number that you need to work, this has recently happened to me, and I really didn't even know it was a short sale before we put it in the contract, but I wouldn't have even pursued it in the beginning. The realtor didn't let me know that it was our father's house until we had it on the contract. Oh, this is a short sale. So we made an offer of $50,000. Then we put it in the last part of November. We got a response back maybe the last part of January, and they came back at $88,000. So all that time went by, and we're $38,000 off the number that we need, that we agreed upon with the seller. It was our father's property. And so boom, so I said, I just don't have the patience for that. Now, if you're going to do them, you can do them and just forget about them and just do a lot of them, and some of them are hit or whatever. So that's going to be, I just personally don't have a patience for it. Not the one, maybe, I think I did one short sale, but when we called and got a payoff. I think the closing was on one day. We got a payoff that day and closed the next day. And so it went in a boom, but most of them are not going to be like that. That was an odd situation. So they took a lesser amount, is what I'm saying, than what was owed, a lot less. So that was my one only experience with a short sale, but it wasn't a normal process. Supervisor says, which direct marketing do you do? I think I just explained that. Wellbound says, do you let your students have access to your buyers list? Well, if, I'm assuming you're talking about locally. Well, that's just for Birmingham. So if I have a student, I don't really give them access to my list, but I'll, if they have a deal, I'll provide a buyer for them. But if I do that, I expect to get paid. But the thing is, once they go to close and they meet the buyer, they don't need me anymore because they've introduced each other, traded contact information. So boom, but I'm cool with that, because the same thing will happen on the flip side. If they provided a buyer for me, I meet the buyer, boom, I don't need them anymore in that deal. So it works both ways. So not really give them the list, but I will help them. But we're talking about residential locally here to Birmingham. What I do when someone's a student, I teach them how to create their own buyers list. Again, that's not difficult to do. If you have great deals, it's not difficult to move a property. What do you think? Rico Tolliver said, what do you think about Florida? Sounds like a lot of bread. That's what it sounds like. One of the more heavily populated states. A lot of activity. Everyone, a lot of people want to go there for a number of reasons to live. A lot of people already live there. So it doesn't matter where you are, man. Just have a video. Will wholesaling work in my city? Do people get divorced? Do people die? Do you have tired landlords? Do people lose their job? Do people relocate? If the answer is yes, which we know it is to all of those questions, there's just a few, then there's going to be motivated sellers there. So there's going to be opportunity for you to make money. Your job is to let them know that you exist. That's simple, no matter where you are. Now, obviously, the bigger the city or the smaller the city, that'll factor in. You need people to do deals. The larger the city, the more opportunity is going to present. People call me from Los Angeles talking about, can I wholesale? I said, man, it's over 10 million people out there, man. You do 30 deals in 2017, nobody would know you existed. That may mean $500,000 and no one know you existed. So, wow, no, guys, don't get caught up in this stuff, man. When you see stuff on TV, they talk about the housing market is doing this. That doesn't have anything to do with you, man. That's based on realtors' data and the way they operate. They don't control everything. They control a huge segment of the market, but a lot of private sellers, they want to do something fast and they see your message. Your job is to let them know you exist. You can do deals, especially in a huge market like that. So yes, Florida is cool. It's great, lovely. I learned from a guy out of Florida, so I know what's up. All right, Z Johnson, I'm saying Z because I'm not sure how to pronounce the first name. How to start flipping Section 8 houses. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Are you meaning buying the house, fixing it up, putting a Section 8 tenant in it, and then finding an investor that wants to buy it? That's a different ball game. I'm not sure what you're asking there. All right, Outlaw 2BS says, is it possible to wholesale condemned properties? Yes, it is. Condemned properties, and I guess each market will be different, each city, county, state. It'll basically be on the list, and they're just going to have a fee in most cases to get it off the list. That'll be attached to that property. So that has to be taken in consideration of what you're going to wholesale it for. So boom. So yes, to answer your question, it's basically a lien on the property that's placed on the placed by the local municipality on that property. All right. R Dub says, is the seller and the buyer usually at closing at the same time, and can that be awkward? Yes, very awkward. But again, that's what you're for. And I'm not great at networking, so it can be very awkward, to answer your question. So you just have to handle it. But I just simply go in, hello, Mr. Seller, good to see you again. Here's my partner, blah, blah, blah on this deal. That's it, man. They sit down. Once they get down, start signing that paperwork, man, knowing that check is come from the seller, buyer know he's going to get a house he can make money on. Everybody's good, man. It's no big deal. but it can be awkward to answer your question. All right, Samuel Loud says, what website do you use to purchase bandit signs? Dirtcheapsigns.com, but I would recommend that you call them to get the discount that they offer people that I refer. It's like a 5% discount, not much, but that I add up over time if you order enough. And just ask for Curtis or Christina. So dirtcheapsigns.com. Don't order online, you won't get the discount. So ask for Curtis or Christina and just let them know Ty sent you. Lost my place here again. Let me see here. Ooh. Oh, we got some questions. Let me see. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Hold on, God. I lost my place. Ooh. Man, I really appreciate you guys coming out, man. Answering a lot of questions. People have a lot of questions, so it just grow. It'll help others because this will still be on YouTube. So, all right, next question. All right, Samuel says, sort of, I already answered this question. What are ways to advertise, I guess, for wholesaling? If you're talking about trying to find deals, Samuel, must be your first time seeing me. I talk about bandit signs a lot. Those are the signs that you see on the street to say we buy houses, and direct mail, obviously website, internet, that has a cost in itself. Social media, we're still trying to figure out that animal. But those are going to be your normal ways. You can do bird dogs, and then obviously you can look for properties if you know what you're looking for, understanding that if you're going to do properties that are already for sale online, that's a different way of going about it. Through realtors, that's a different way of going about it. But I like to recommend to my students, and even have a couple of videos out here, that if you target landlords, properties that are for rent, and you can talk to the actual private owner, that can be a source. You have to have a lot of patience to do it that way, but it's free, so just putting in the time and making it work. So there you are. All right, Gordon answered the question for someone. Sophia says, how do you flip multifamily? How do you flip multifamily? Well, flipping multifamily is a little different in itself. And what I mean by that is that it's not going to be analyzed the same way that houses are, because it's going to be income based. Obviously, the condition matters, but it's going to be income based. So at the end of the day, it's still finding it doesn't have to be a smoking hot deal like it does with houses. By no means. It can be a lot closer to full price, whatever that is. So, but the way you evaluate a property, multifamily, is going to be based on the income and expenses. And what I mean by that is what is bringing in each month. And that's normally going to be generated by mostly rents collected, minus the repairs annually. They call that an NOI. So that's net operating income. So that's taking the actual gross rents and subtracting the gross expenses, and that gives you the net operating income. So once you accomplish that, then that gives a particular investor, an individual investor, an idea of what the property is producing as far as income. It's a little bit more detailed than what I'm explaining, but it can be, once you have a deal, you place on the contract, still the same thing, still the same process, just getting to that point is going to be different from houses. But, I have training on that. I have very few free videos on that process, but I do offer a course on that also. It's just too detailed for it. It's just not as simple as I can explain with houses when you start talking about multifamily. But again, you have it on the contract, you have a buyer for it, you can get paid, just like any real estate. All right, Supervisor says, where do you get lists from? As I said, listsource.com, and Melissa Data are two places. I have actual Supereyes. I have videos explaining that in detail on my channel here, right on YouTube. All right. Jody says, in my area, College Park, Georgia, I don't see any bandit signs. How many should I use to try first? Well, Jody, sometimes, sometimes, a lot of times you have to get outside of your comfort zone. Where you live, where I live and where I place bandit signs, sometimes it's 20, 30 minutes away from where I live, but, I put them all over town in reality because I place a lot of signs off of freeway exits, which I would suggest that you do 285, 85, 20, what else runs through Atlanta? That's it, ain't it? 285, 20, 285 is the bypass, but 85, 20, and what else runs through Atlanta? I forget what's the other one that runs through Atlanta. So all of those freeway exits, I'll be placing signs off of them. A lot of times they'll stay up because they're hard to get to for haters that like to take down your signs. So, but the point being, you're gonna have to probably get outside of your comfort zone. All right, someone says, how often do you come down to Montgomery? Rarely. Normally if I'm coming to the Gump, I'm just passing through. All right, Ace Marketing said, do you use any software to automate your wholesaling business? No, I don't. I really don't. As technical as I am, as far as automation, you may have to be a little bit more defined in what you're talking about as far as automation, but I don't use anything. And I had a guy call me the other day. He was asking me about that. And guys, what you have to remember is when you hear people talk, you put your business on autopilot and all of that. You want to use as much technology as possible. I use YouTube to upload my properties. Obviously, I use stuff online to do it. My iPhone is just like everything, you know what I'm saying, as far as technology or whatever. But as far as putting stuff in place, you don't have to do anything. Get that out of your mind. Just get that out of your mind. The reason that's pushed to you because they know people want easy to make money, and checks, credit cards come out. Easy, they want automation indicates easy, and you can make money, credit cards start to come out. That's the hustle. I ain't hating, I'm just telling you that you want to use as much technology as possible to make the business work for you and as easy as possible. But if you think you're just going to set up some stuff that you don't have to do anything, it's just not going to happen, man. I'm just telling you. And that's la la land. That's seminar, pull out the credit card. I know people want easy, credit card comes out. So to answer your question, you want to use as much technology as possible, but don't think you can just set up a business and then checks will just start falling in your lap. $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 checks just start falling in. Not with this. Now, you can set up some internet businesses that if you put on automation, if you know how to do that, and that'll do that, but not with this. It just doesn't work that way. All right. All right. Gerald says, hi, Ty, how do you go about running comps on a property? Got my signs this week and ready to take action. Gerald, I have a ton of videos on this, but just really quick to explain it. You're talking about ARV and understanding what's the deal and what's not a deal, but to run comps, you're trying to determine ARV. Now, ARV stands for after repair value. Don't confuse the repair part of it, meaning anything with repairs for real. What it simply means is what will a property appraise for in excellent condition once it's fixed up. So the poor man's way of doing it, and just so much free information out there, this is one of those automation things, is that you just simply Google the address, man. And you have sites like Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, ePraisal, HomeSnap, Homes. All those sites are going to give you values, and what you're looking for is consistency at the highest price. And I normally try to get at least 3. Sometimes that's not possible because it may not be enough information or enough transactions going on in the area where the house that you're trying to do research on. So so to answer your question, that's the simple way to do it. But again, I have tons of videos on that give you more of a visual of what I'm talking about. All right, Jody Ross says, have you thought about coming to Atlanta to do some speaking? I've, people ask me about it. In order for me to probably ever do something like that and just put that out here, somebody basically gonna have to set it all up for me and say, hey, boom, come, we got to set up, but here's the check. You know what I'm saying? That because that's not really what I do. What you're seeing here now is a hobby. I have something of value, which is my knowledge of doing real estate deals. Fortunate enough to make a little money off of it, but I make my living off doing deals. Again, if somebody comes and say, hey, boom, Ty, we got this set up. We're going to do all the marketing, show up, bloom, bam. Or somebody comes to me and have a plan together and I might have to put some money in myself. I'll do it. I'll listen, but I ain't really interested in that unless it's just right, because number one, I've never done anything like that before, live. I'm just sitting here right here at home by myself, got my look, I guess you'll call it a studio set up or whatever. And it's just me. So I can talk to you because I'm not talking to you. It's just like I'm talking. If you saw what was in the background of this camera, I'm sitting there watching CNN in the background, trying to pay attention to what I'm trying to say to you, and boom. So I've never stood up in front of people, and you have to have it's a skill to do that. I think I can do it, but I'm a introvert. Believe it or not, I've said it, but I'm an introvert. I deal with people because I like to eat, as you can tell, and pay bills, and pay some of my people I care about bills. But again, really not interested in that. Someone had to come to me and say, hey, boom, we got this set up. Here's a check. Come talk to these people, blah, blah. Something in that, and done in that way where I have to do very little or whatever. But again, I'm a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur first. Somebody, they can make something and they have the money, but they have a skill to set something up like that. I may well be interested, but I can only do a small amount of work. I talked about that too much, but so boom. So nothing on the schedule, baby girl. I'm assuming Jode is a female. I'm sorry. All right, Barrera, I think I'm pronouncing the last name right. What is the best way to track down abandoned houses or any type of houses at all, having the worst luck ever? Again, we're all live, guys. I have to keep repeating that. People don't know that I'm live here. But to answer that question, well, I'm assuming you're able to find out who owns the property through courthouse records. In most cases, in most states, you can do that. So once you have that actual mailing address, you can go ahead and try to find the phone number. If you can get that, you'll always take that as an option to do that. But once you have the mailing address, the only thing you really can do is send out a piece of mail, let them know you're interested in buying the property. Now, I'm not sure how many you've targeted, but if you've done 100, that's not a lot. If you've done 300, that's a decent number. So without knowing how many you've done and how you've tried to contact them, now you can always go ask the neighbors also. People sleep on that. A lot of times they'll know how to reach that person. They'll know the history of that house. So give them an incentive to contact the seller, leave them your number. When I say an incentive, offer them $500 to $1,000. If you close on the deal, you'll pay them. So that's an option. right, so Maria says, the videos are great. I've seen my first client call this week and I go see the house on Saturday. I understand how to calculate ARV, how to fill out a contract and repairs. Thanks. Hey, make it happen, Maria, make it happen. All right. 8, the Nigerian nightmare. That's what's happening. How can I get REO foreclosures under contract? Well, you can understand that closing those deals are going to be different because lenders are not going to allow you to assign. You can do a double close, but you're going to have to buy it first in some form of fashion, whether it's your buyer's money or it's transactional funding. Also, they're going to want earnest money, proof of funds, but you can get around those hurdles on the proof of funds. So boom. So it can be done, but it's just a different process and understanding that. I think I have a video on it, but understand it's not the same. They create hurdles to prevent you from doing a traditional wholesale, but get it under contract. That's not difficult. Wholesaling is the issue. And remember, REOs are no secret now. Now, I'm not saying you can't do deals like that only if you have the right type of buyer, but it's like they're secret. They're advertised everywhere. If it's available to you, it's available to any investor in your market or obviously outside the market with the internet. But so again, you got to have the right type of buyer if I'm assuming you're trying to wholesale it. All right. Well-rounded 13 says, also, do you have any transactional funding companies that you would recommend? Thanks a million. I don't have anyone because I never use them. I had some students to use them, but I've never used them before. All right. Desiree says, a seller said that they still have a mortgage on a house. I forgot if you said that you can wholesale or not. I got nervous and started messing up with his question, and the seller didn't contact me again. That's fine. Hey, that's valuable. That is so valuable what you did, Desiree, because you took action, that experience. I'm going to give you the answer. Yes, you can wholesale a property with a mortgage, but is the payoff less than the amount that you need to make work? Example. The number that you need to make it work is 50,000, but they owe 30,000. That deal will work because it's less than 50,000. The number you need is 50,000, but they owe 75,000. That deal won't work because they owe more than what you need. So yes, it can work, but you took action. You got a little egg on your face, but it was free. That egg on your face was free. You're still alive, but you learned something. That's more valuable than anything that I can teach you, because you actually took action and you learned something. I'm answering the question for you, but you took action. That's the main thing. You're still alive, and it didn't cost you anything. Someone else asked, any good software you recommend for wholesaling? I think I answered that. Someone's looking for a networking opportunity. Tyler's. Okay. All right. Billy Townsend says, what questions do you ask sellers when they call you from your banner signs? Do you have a script? Yeah, I have an actual video on that breaks that down. I think it's called the top 10 questions to ask sellers for wholesaling houses. So just do a search on YouTube for that, Billy. It'll go into detail on the questions that you should ask. Solomon says, am I giving away a free course this time? No, I'm not. Sorry. All right. Ty, do you send contracts to buyers, sellers via email? Do you have a template on your laptop or PC, or you take a picture of it and then email? Well, normally my contracts are in PDF, so I just edit them online. I use an e-signature and place my signature on there, and I just email it if that's an option. For most people, even people a little bit up in age, they still have access to email. That's just where we are right now. So in most cases, 98% of the time I send by email. Valerie Moore says, who are you buying your list from? I'm not sure what list you're talking about. Oh, you're talking about the absentee list, ListSource or listsource.com or Melissa Data. And Kim Harris says, I got my first property on the contract today. Hey, horns going off. Hey, make that deal happen, Kim. All right. I'll answer a couple more. All right. How many mailers should you suggest mailing per week? As many as you can afford. It's really that simple. If you can afford 100 a week, boom. If you afford 1,000 a week, as many as you can afford. So that's going to be based totally on your resources. So as many as you can afford. All right, I'm answering this question. Terry Free says, can you explain what you do during the inspection period after putting a property on the contract? I'm assuming you're talking about a residential property. I rarely even put an inspection period on my, but I guess if I'm dealing on a realtor, I will. But if it's just with a private seller, I don't even put an inspection period on the. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but you're just trying to find a buyer, because I've already seen the property before I put it on the contract in most cases. So it's not like I need to go back out. But you're just trying to place a buyer with that particular deal. It's just really that simple. But guys, we're an hour in. Really appreciate everyone that showed up. We'll be back next week, hopefully. Everyone should, and be safe on your weekend. It's Mother's Day of this particular video. So those of you that have that opportunity, boom, make sure you make that happen if you celebrate it. I know I do. Again, I appreciate everyone that showed up tonight. Tell a friend, family member next week, Flippinar.com. And I really appreciate you guys being here. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you was here with the Flip Man. So again, thanks for showing up, and we will see you guys on the flip side.